Matt, what's up? Just finished
Jeremy, we
watching.
won one.
Just finished watching the 136 to 107 victory over the mighty Washington Wizards. What a game. Maybe one of the first ones I've really enjoyed of this season. It was to the Washington Wizards, but I'm not going to let that put me down.
Yeah, I think if anything, I agree. We want to talk about mighty. I mean, we beat Alex Sarr. I think that really says something after the performance that he put in. So I'm not going to let the strength of schedule in this instance take anything away from a victory that I think was outside of taking a first punch a little bit in that first quarter, a pretty thorough end-to-end dominant performance from a lot of guys, which I thought was one of the best parts of it.
Yeah, and we'll go point by point, and I think we can even record this and play it, I think, at the beginning of every episode. But Jaylen Brown, we got to start there. 35, 5, and 5. Insanely efficient. I know Scal during the broadcast read off some cherry picked stat about how only him, Michael Jordan, and Luca have done something like this. Uh, but what a game. There was a moment in the first quarter where it seemed like things could go bad. We saw them giving up the offensive rebounds again. Started to see guys tighten up, especially Derek White. Peyton Pritchard missed a few. Not to go all not to go all Bill Simmons on you, but the body language was not great. Jaylen Brown said, "Give me the ball." He started going DeMar DeRozan on everybody, just shooting mid-range jumpers, getting into the paint. 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. What did you think of his game?
I thought it was great. I think anytime your star player goes DeMar DeRozan on the opposite team, the body language is immediately gonna pick up. I think that's something we know about the NBA for sure. But I thought in this instance, uh, yeah, again, I
Everybody
know that we talked about
famously
it in our.
loves playing with DeMar DeRozan.
If there's one thing we know, yeah, I would say it was end to end an almost perfect game from Jaylen Brown. I think the only thing that you can really take away negative about his performance is he did leave his hairline on another player again. You hate to see that, but I think I was surprised, honestly, by the end of the game that he only had 5 rebounds because it did feel like he was impacting the floor in that
They were big
area.
rebounds. And
Yeah, and I think
defensively, he
that's
moved to Alex Sarr. When Alex Sarr started going off, he was like, "I'm taking that guy," and jumped on him. Which had a huge effect on the game.
yeah.
I was going to
I
bring
thought
up
it
the
was a
hair.
great performance. I thought
Even before he started leaving it
I
on
you have
people,
to
when
bring
he
it up.
checked in, it was the Carlos Boozer shine painted on. It's hard to criticize him on a night like tonight, but he's got to do something about the hair. I'm calling it right now. I
I
think
think
as a bald man, Jaylen Brown would take over the NBA. We've seen it with every player that shaves their head. You go up 5 efficiency points, 2 points a game, one rebound a game, automatically. When's he gonna do it?
And you know what? I'll take those stats. I do. I personally believe that Jaylen Brown was destined for greatness because of the hairstyle that he came into the league with, and have been steadily disappointed the more he's moved away from that really fantastic high top. Um, but yeah, no, I thought his performance in this game was fantastic. I think whether or not he shaves his head in years to come, being able, again, we've talked about him being able to utilize that mid-range shot, and today he was absolutely a master of it. Went to it, even didn't even really bother trying to see if his three was working before he decided, I'm getting into the paint, I'm gonna do that pull up mid-range. I'm gonna do some turnaround shots, I'm gonna get into the paint. I thought drawing fouls early was fantastic. I do think it was in the first quarter, it took us, I think, 7 minutes to get our first free throw, and that was on a defensive 3 seconds call. So him being able to then kind of read that and be like, you know what, I'm gonna get us to the line, I thought was really good.
Yeah, and what I also appreciated about it is time with the ball. Like, I don't think anything he did tonight he couldn't have done if Jason Tatum was on the floor. It was very much catch the ball, make a move, score a bucket. There was no long dribbles, no long post ups. That this is replicable once Jason Tatum comes back. And we've seen him have these games with Jason Tatum on the floor. I think just given these opportunities to kind of explore this space a little bit more is going to pay dividends down the road. So I'm nothing but excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, again, end to end, great performance. I loved that he was picking up defensively, going for those rebounds, distributing the ball pretty well. Um, yeah, outside of leaving his hair on a guy, I thought it was great performance. And I will push back a little bit in terms of I will defend cherry picked stats just because Kada, with the only Celtic in history to shoot 100% from the field on at least 7 shots with 12 rebounds and 5 assists. That's an
That's not
impressive.
cherry. Kate is just good.
Yeah, this I do want to get to that. I do think this was the best I've seen Kada be.
I think I texted you before the first game of the season. I said Cato will surprise you this year. I'm kind of excited about him. And I think he's gotten a little bit of flack this year for the rebounding issues that the team has had. And there have been specific moments. That one rebound against Nurk at the end of the Jazz game was tough. But if you look at his statistics, he's rebounding well. He's leading the team in defensive and offensive rebounding percentage, getting like 7 a game. The issue is if he's your only rebounder, you have issues. He's not a Steven Adams who's going to go and just dominate the glass by himself. But when he's out there with a Josh Minott next to him, then he's a good rebounding center. And I think we saw him kind of be able to explore more of his offensive game tonight, where if you throw him a lob, he's catching it and finishing it. And I think I'm hoping in future games that Peyton Pritchard, Derek White learn that lesson and just start lobbing it over because it seems like it's going in every time he catches it.
Yes, I did have written down in all caps, Kada lobs forever. I thought that that was an element of his game that really shone tonight. And I think going back to it again and again is something that will continue to work. He's got good hands around the rim, being able to catch those passes even when, and I think Scal might have said 14 times, like, we're not the best passing team. I thought I'm jumping around a little bit, but Anthony Simons left something to be desired with his passing tonight. A lot of just kind of open shots turned into, oh, wait, let me fumble to catch this. And I think Keita had some lobs that were just a little bit difficult to get a handle on, but he's got good hands. He didn't let balls get away from him. And I think, again, being able to find him relatively open around the rim is going to be something that is a big strength of ours because he has shown that he's able to finish that. I thought him being able to get some putbacks was huge. The 5 assists I thought was fantastic, an element of his game that, and there were a couple times where he got the ball and was like, "I'm taking this up the floor." I don't know that we're going to be seeing Point Keita anytime soon, but I thought that if he's able to show a little bit of handling, a little bit of playmaking, that's something that is a sorely needed element on this team.
Yeah, and I don't know if you watched much Eurobasket this year. You may have a life and friends and all that. But for those of us who don't, he really is like a Jokic for that Portugal team. They'll drop it off to him at the high post, and he's throwing no looks. He's throwing bounce passes. He has a passing game to him that I think with our lack of passing on this team, we should definitely explore more. And we've seen him pass out of the short roll a bunch this year, where even if he doesn't have just an open lane to the basket for a dunk, if we can just lob it over the defense to him, I trust that he's going to make the right decision and hit the corner man or swing it back. The
Yeah.
other part of
Yeah, I
his
think
game
I
that
think
I'd
he showed tonight that he makes good decisions.
the other part of his game that I'd like to see is in warmups today, he went 6 for 6 on threes. And then I could see 3 moments in the game where he started to pull up, decided not to, and pass it around. Is it time to just let Namis Keita start chucking? I didn't think I'd be saying that 6 games into the season, but is it?
I think it might be that time. It is reminding me, it's throwing me back to the days where out of nowhere Amir Johnson just became a little bit of a three-point shooter in a way that nobody saw coming. I think obviously the league was in a different place back then, so it was less expected for bigs to be able to space the floor like that. There's nothing I believe in more than the results of pregame shoot-arounds. So if he's really lacing them during those warm-ups, I think it's worth exploring. I think if we're able to mix in some pick and pop actions with him, just to throw the defense off because he is a solid roll threat and a lob threat, just to give a little bit more unpredictability to our offense, I think that could be worth exploring. Again, God knows if he can hit them, but I'd like to find out.
Yeah, and as we saw from the Amir Johnson minutes, um, once you can hit even a slow three and one every 2 games, the defense changes how they have to guard you. And it's just going to open up so many more roles for them. The next thing I had on my list was the non Nemes Keita minutes. Because it seemed like Joe got pretty tired of Luca Garza early in this game. And we started going with the Josh Minott or Jordan Walsh minutes at center, whoever you consider the center in those lineups. And it seemed to work. I'm not sure how much that is just the team rebounding of those two guys and how much they were hustling and athleticism, and how much of it was that we were up against the bench unit for the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both for sure. But I was also very encouraged by I was calling it the MINOTT at the 5 minutes. And an interesting thing about that is if you looked at it going into, I believe, like kind of at least going into the fourth quarter, if not like halfway through the fourth quarter, Minot had 1 rebound. So he wasn't, even when he was playing that position and being the big on the floor metaphorically, it wasn't like he was soaking up a ton of rebounds. But I think you made an excellent point picking up on the team rebounding effort of guys like Minot, like Walsh, like Ugo when he's in there, of just being active in that area is really helping. And that's something that I think we're lacking when it is kind of those Keita minutes where I think there is a little bit of that expectation of, well, that's our big man, so he's going to soak up those rebounds. And there's a lack of team rebounding there. There's a lack of kind of boxing out that you're seeing him get overwhelmed by 2 or 3 other guys going for offensive rebounds that aren't getting boxed out, and he just isn't capable of grabbing it out of that kind of scrum. So I think that the team rebounding element is something that I definitely want to see more of. I think those bench guys, those hustle guys, really.
I mean, Joe made it his slogan of the preseason was it's not about the bigs, we just got to find 5 guys who can rebound. If you remember the press conference, he answered every question that way. Just find 5 guys who can rebound. And you saw him start to try the small ball approach with the Chris Boucher lineups in the Jazz game. I was kind of lukewarm coming out of that game on those, just because Chris Boucher has the size and the wingspan to center one of those kind of small ball switchy lineups. But you've never really seen him either this season or in Toronto um, provide the hustle, and uh, his measuring stats, his wingspan, and his size have never really translated to blocks and rebounds like you might want them to. So but having Josh Minot and Jordan Walsh in there, who was a revelation in this game. I think this is the first time he played all season. Just the way those guys were bouncing around, super long. There's a stat I heard. Um, Last season was the first season that more rebounds were created off of threes than twos in NBA history. And when you think about how you have to rebound a three versus a two, it's a different skill set and it requires much more length than it does brute strength. So if we have 5 guys with plus wingspans out there who are fast and athletic, we should be able to make up the rebounding difference of not having a bruising center out there in the middle, even if that could be our weakness on any given night.
Yeah, and I think that we saw that. I do again. It is important to remember that we were playing the Washington Wizards, and that is a factor in examining all of this. But I did think that it was those kind of hustle plays from the guys with length. I think our bench wings are really showing something right now, or at least they did tonight. And I wanted to get your opinion on Jordan Walsh. fantastic in this game. Came in immediately, made an impact with his energy, with his defense. I was his defensive intensity made up for some of his over eagerness. He did have that. I forget who it was a couple of years ago of just that problem of any pump fake will get him 6 feet in the air. But he's so intense and eager to defend well that he is recovering on those possessions a lot of times. We saw him jump on a pump fake, immediately turn for the nearest shooter and intercept a pass and start a fast break that way. So I love the intensity on defense. I'm curious what you think about how he fits into the rotation after a game like this.
Biggest thing that stood out to me with Jordan Walsh's play was just his strength from last year. Last year, you would see a lot of plays where he would just put his body in front of a guy, is take the hit, and then either collapse forward or collapse backwards. So he was either fouling on every possession or falling out of the way and leaving a lane. Here, it seems like he has just a much better ability to run at a guy, spread out wide, and hold his ground, which is huge. Because what he's going to bring to the table is defensive intensity. And we did really see that in this game. I think going forward, he's stealing some Baylor Shireman minutes. Um, this is the second game in a row after that Houston game where Baylor went off in semi garbage time, let's call it. But both games, Baylor's come in, a lot of quick pullouts from Joe. Seems frustrated with his intensity on defense. Seems frustrated by some fouls. So I think after what Jordan Walsh did tonight, next few games we're going to see him get shots in games. Also hitting the three was huge. Because if people have to guard him on the perimeter and he's playing lockdown defense and rebounding, then he's a rotation player.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we're going to end up seeing is Minot seems to have solidified his place as kind of our bench wings. I do want to at some point get to Sam Hauser and his little
My boy
disappearing
Sam.
act. Yeah, 6 minutes through like the first 2.5 quarters. I was very surprised by that. But I do think
I
getting back
checked my
to,
phone because I didn't think Sam had played at the half. Um,
yeah,
because
he had a
you
limited
couldn't
run in
really
the.
see him out there. Part of the problem is he's just not making threes, and when his 3 point shooting's off, then there's not much he provides.
Well, I think
Um,
that goes back to kind of Shireman and his minutes is the difference I think between Jordan Walsh and Shireman as like that kind of end of the bench wing that might become more important, if injuries start to occur or anything like that, is what do they each provide? And I think what does this team need? And I just if Walsh is able to maintain that defensive intensity, if he's able to show that he can at least be respectable from three and needs to be guarded out there, if he's able to provide this kind of shots aren't falling, I don't expect him to come in and turn the tide the way that Walsh's energy can and creating fast break opportunities and kind of easier buckets.
yeah, I think the other problem Shireman has is he doesn't always know how to get open. Where Sam Hauser, I trust he can find a three off ball, which is a much more valuable skill than just being able to knock down a open three. He's going to find angles to cut. He can make a really deep three if he has to, but he's going to find a way to get open if he knows his shot is falling. Baylor, when you watch a lot of his games from Creighton, all of the plays were designed to get Baylor Shireman a three. So three guys were lining up, setting picks. He's getting it kicked to him, curling around a screen, and he's knocking it down. Now that he's not, now that he's at the NBA level and the offense isn't calling plays for him to get those shots, he is really struggling to figure out how to get open off ball. And I think it's very similar to what we had with Aaron Nesmith, where he came into the league as a play shooter, like a JJ Redick, where he was used to knowing he was going to get maybe even 8 screens a game to try to get open, knock down a three, which a lot of guys have come into the league that way, and a lot of them have learned how to get open off ball. So I don't want to fully give up on Baylor Shireman, but right now he is coming in the last out of that group of wing guys, just for what this team provides, what this team needs at the moment.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think I think Neesmith is an interesting comp because Neesmith is one of those guys that you watch him go to Indiana and kind of find himself, and it is kind of one of those guys who got away, and one of those that maybe if we had kept him and let him develop, and again just not having the minutes for him when he was here, and not having the opportunity for him when he was here, and so you'd hate to see Shireman go somewhere else and pop off like that, knowing that we could have had that, but again, just I think it's a testament to what the other guys can provide. That Ugo and Walsh tonight and Minot being inserted into the starting lineup have been able to provide on.
yeah, and Joe's gonna do what he thinks is gonna make us win on any given night. And I think that's the only way you can really coach this team. So he's not going to think who's going to be the most valuable in 3 years to this team. He's going to think who's going to help me win tonight. And right now it looks like that's Josh Minot, that's Jordan Walsh, and to a certain extent that's Hugo Gonzalez, who had a really interesting game tonight. 5-2-1, nothing super jumped off the stat sheet. Really intense on defense. A few gambles I didn't love. I did like that towards the end of the game, we kind of let him play around a little bit more with his offense. I saw him try a few drives into spin moves, which were kind of his signature when you watch his Eurobasket or his preseason games. One of them led to just an open bucket. One of them he got caught but was able to pass out for the assist to Minot. He hit the three. I also saw him calling for the ball a couple times on post ups, which I thought was really interesting because I haven't really seen him post up much um, before this, but definitely excited to see him to get more games with garbage time, just to be able to see what he can do on offense because he really hasn't been given that freedom yet.
Yeah, and I think that that is the qualifier is it's going to be exciting to see what Ugo's capable of, and knowing that that is going to come in garbage time when we've already kind of handled the Washington Wizards, and wondering how that factors into the sample and what that really means. But again, yeah, I did also notice that play where he got caught, and I wasn't sure how much of it was kind of court vision and how much he was just like, oh, thank God, Minot's right there and was able to pass that off and get the assist. But I'll take it. I think the energy was good. I thought he made a couple lapses, but was hustling and made up for them. And yeah, and God, Josh Minot, I think we haven't seen Jaylen Brown be the high flying dunker that we know he used to be in a while. It is fun to
He
have a guy that
tried
you're
for a
just like,
big one in the first quarter.
yes,
He
he did.
tried for that.
And but it is fun to have a guy like Josh Minot who's catching lobs at his height and just like posterizing people. Almost climbed Alex Sarr, got called for the offensive foul on that one, but yeah, just like having a high flyer on the wing position who's able to come in and catch lobs, I think is huge. Brings another element to our offense, and a career high for him tonight. I thought he looked really good. A couple mistakes on defense, but overall like just really really solid stuff. And again, seeing Hauser's not shooting, I can't say I blame Joe for slotting Minot into that starting lineup. I do think that that minutes disparity or that playtime disparity, or kind of seeing how that plays out is going to be really interesting. Seeing if Sam Hauser can regain his confidence and what that does in terms of the dimensions of our offense.
Yeah, and I'd be nervous if I was Sam because Josh Minot's still only 22. He's still at an age where you expect him to add tools to his game. And even in this season, I see him shooting the three quicker with more confidence. I see him knowing when to cut just a little bit smoother. Um, so yeah, he's definitely slotted for that starting role going forward. Any other key takeaways?
Yeah, yeah, I think Peyton Pritchard as the short mid-range assassin is just loved to see it. Um, I didn't see the final numbers, but at some point he was like he had hit two of his six threes and hit like five of his six twos. And I believe at least four of those were like those short little pull-ups or floaters from like that 5 to 10 foot range. I think that's an element to his offense that he just really thrives in. I know that Bleacher Report was like, oh, 6-1 Pritchard on 7-1 Alex Sarr. And like, that was a really cool play, but also just demonstrates what he's capable of when he's able to create space for himself in that area. And seeing that his 3-point shot hasn't necessarily been where we're used to it being this year, I want to see him utilize that space a little bit.
Yeah, it was. Can you hear me at all? It was kind of a quiet game for Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. But when you look at the numbers, they both had, 12, 15 points, pretty solid shooting. That it seemed like they were kind of following Jaylen Brown's lead more than that they were leading the team to this win. But I think they might just need a few of those to get them on board when they can start shooting more in the future. I was a little disappointed with Anthony Simons just because it seemed he made threes, but only when I didn't care if that he was making threes anymore.
Yes, I think more than 75% of his points came in the fourth quarter where he was hitting everything from three, but by that point we were already up by 20 points. And before that, I want to say the first three quarters he had maybe 4 points. And again, the passing was not ideal. There were a couple turnovers or near turnovers that just a little bit of a lack of finesse with the passing. And again, if he's not scoring during the parts of the game where it's close, where we need him to come in off the bench and provide that energy, especially today, Pritchard with the two quick early fouls, and Anthony Simons was in like 2 minutes into the game, and just didn't show a whole lot for it. I thought he did have some decent moments on defense, a nice steal, just forcing the ball out of a guy's hands on the corner baseline. But overall, yeah, not super impressed with his performance. Besides, some nice threes when it was in garbage time.
Yeah, completely agree. Um, any other last takeaways before we move on?
Good to Nacho win. We'll take it. We got
Good
some
to
cherry
Nacho
pick
win.
stats. We'll make some records. Kata really great. MINOTT fantastic. Jaylen Brown was Jaylen Brown, and then Peyton Pritchard in that second quarter with those short mid range. Just fun to watch. Fun to watch the Celtics click for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a fun game. I wish we could play the Washington Wizards every night, but
We'd be
uh,
undefeated. Maybe not,
I'm
but
gonna I'm gonna
we'd be
send an
good.
email to Adam Silver after this just to see if that's possible.
If you can make that happen, it'd be greatly appreciated. It's got to be the
This
Wizards.
next
It can't just be like bad teams because sometimes the Jazz will just
it
take
can't
us
be the
anyway.
Utah Jazz. Yeah, bad
No, they're
teams
out.
except for the Utah Jazz. All right, we're calling this next segment Larry Bird ain't walking through that door, folks. We're gonna
Yeah,
go back and forth, choose a previous Celtics player from any era, non All Star, non award winner. So no Finals MVPs, no Rookie of the Year, no All Stars. That we would really want to see slotted into this Celtics team. And why? I'll let you go first. And please phrase your answer as blank is not walking through that door, folks, in your best Rick Pitino impression.
I don't have a best Rick Pitino impression, but let me just say
Well, we gotta stop recording and you gotta work on that for a little bit.
I'll have it ready for the next one. But listen, I'm gonna look directly into the camera. Aaron Baines ain't walking through that door, folks, and it's a heartbreaker. But I do think that's the kind of guy that I think of when I'm like, outside of, again, it'd be great to add an all-star right now, but like, as in terms of role players, in terms of like what do we need right now that would turn our season around in a meaningful way, that's the kind of guy I think of. um Obviously for the rebounding, but also just not just rebounding in size, but I remember very fondly the defensive toughness that he provided, the grit. um Again, I think would someone like that would slot in very nicely with the kind of hustle and energy of guys like Josh Minott, of guys like Ugo, Jordan Walsh. I think just kind of instilling that culture, and also just sneakily was also able to shoot the ball a little bit, was also able to do some stuff around the post, and so that's the guy that I really do wish was walking through the door right now. How about you?
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I also just think having an extra veteran out there, because a lot of our bigs are both not the rebounder Aaron Baines was, but just not as experienced as he was. And, he won a championship with the Spurs before coming here. He had gotten really far with Team Australia in the Olympics. He had been through a lot of battles. And when he was on the court, I just kind of trusted that our defense was going to be set correctly and he was going to meet guys at the rim. He was going to get defensive rebounds, and there was going to be a certain floor to how he played.
Yes,
Um,
exactly that. And I want to point out that we've been able to say all these things without even mentioning that's also he would bring the hair.
he would bring the hair. Now, my question to you is, would Aaron Baines still be on this team if Tommy Heinsohn hadn't spied on him in the shower?
The world may never know. That is one of
Uh,
the great turning points
because
in
this is
Celtics
possibly
history.
the only Celtics player we know was at least semi sexually harassed out the door.
Yeah, what was Tommy Heinsohn's quote about him after seeing him in the shower? He was all of.
Everything's bigger in Australia. Seeing Aaron Baines in the shower.
Yeah. Yeah, we really are in a different era, and I don't know what to take away from that except
I miss it when these Scalabrini is not going to the showers after a game. He's not putting the time in.
I don't know that I would appreciate his commentary as much. Like Tommy Heinsohn had a certain charm about him that it was almost he was the grandpa that you're like, I have no clue what is coming out of his mouth at Thanksgiving. Scalabrini doesn't have that energy, but yeah, I do think having Aaron Baines right now would be great for a whole host of reasons. If not for, it would make for brighter commentary.
My pick, mentioned him a little bit early in the show, Aaron Neesmith. I just think the rebounding we got from him was never appreciated the way it should be. Um, Getting a guy who plays the two, who's crashing the boards like he was, providing that amount of energy. The shooting is a great bonus to that, but like we're going to keep saying all year, we just got to find five guys who can rebound. And it can't just be Nemise Keita and Xavier Tillman trying to get every rebound out there. We need five guys out there. And the way that Josh Minott got inserted into the starting lineup and just brought so much energy, so much rebounding. Aaron Neesmith was doing the same thing, but slotted in a much smaller position. So just having a guard we could throw out there who increases the speed of play, increases how we're hitting the boards, because we're also last in pace right now. So bringing back an Aaron Baines or a Jared Sullinger, one of our big rebounders of the past, isn't going to make us as fast as we need to be. So I think what this team could really use is just another wing who's going to sprint up and down the floor, who's going to box out his man, who's going to grab boards, and he's going to push it in transition.
Yeah, Aaron Neesmith was on my list. I'm going to be honest about that. I think, yeah, his rebounding was always kind of undervalued, and he, at the time that he left the team that we chose to move on, we just wasn't enough of an offensive factor for what we were looking for. But I do think what he would provide is invaluable right now. So I will say you did forget to say Aaron Neesmith ain't walking through that door, folks.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
sorry. Aaron
yeah,
Neesmith, he's not walking through that door, folks.
until Indiana comes to town. But
Yeah, he will
uh,
actually be walking through that door at some point, but not in the way we'd like.
yeah. Um, I think I have a two-way tie. I was really torn. I think you make a good point about our pace and somebody who's able to kind of crash the boards a little bit and just provide physicality, but also not sacrifice. Because I was thinking of Daniel Tice as a big who could get some rebounds, wasn't primarily just there to gobble up boards, but could also provide spacing at the big man position, which right now I think we're lacking pretty severely. Um, until Keita starts knocking down all of his threes, which will happen. But
Any day now.
until we cross that bridge, I thought Daniel Tice is somebody who was just always solid. Also, given our defense is prone to lapses right now, that we do have a pretty high foul rate. That we do kind of gamble and make a lot of mistakes without guys to back it up behind you. I think Daniel Tice was one of those guys that was just like always a solid, like, okay, he's behind me, so I can take a little bit of a chance, while also providing that stretch ability on the floor. But I was also thinking about Jay Crowder, as just one of those guys who I feel like almost could be an example for some of these wings that we have coming up that we're looking to see what they turn into. Obviously, a lot stronger than guys like Ugo right now, um, but able to kind of slot in and do whatever needed to be done on a given night. Whether that would be hitting some threes on the outside, whether that was trying to create something with his ball, with the ball in his hands, not necessarily being a true playmaker, but being able to kind of facilitate some ball movement when the ball came his way, and then just physical tough defense that at the end of the day was just solid, as well as grabbing some boards.
Yeah, what I always appreciated about Jay Crowder was he was a find a way to win guy. That when he joined the Celtics team, there was the story where he got sent over from the Mavs in the Rondo trade with three other guys who are all much more tenured than him. And they came in, the three other guys clearly had oh, this team's tanking. We're going to be out of here in a few months. Let's just kind of sit back and wait to be traded. And for a while, like he ran some pick and rolls. He was diving on the floor. He just fought for this team to win. So I think adding him to a team where there's a lot of outside noise of this is a gap year, they're going for a pick this year, just having a guy who goes out there and is going to fight to win and fight to get more minutes is really what this team needs.
Yeah, and let me be the first to say, Daniel Tice and Jay Crowder, they're not walking through that door, folks.
With my
How about
last
you?
pick, and I do think you're going to fight me on this one. This is going to be a controversial pick.
All right, let's hear it.
Evan Turner's not walking through that door, folks. When Jaylen Brown has not been on the floor, we have not had a playmaker out there. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, both excellent scorers, both excellent second side playmakers. Kick it to them with 10 seconds left, they'll make the right decision. But having a guy like we had in Evan Turner, his sixth man of the year, where he can dribble the ball up the floor, organize the offense, and get us to a competent level everywhere. You know, I think he averaged 14, 5, and 5 off the bench. Almost won sixth man of the year. Not almost, I think he was third. But just bringing us to a competent level, kind of what Kyle Lowry used to do in bench units for the Raptors, where you can put him with just four guys and he'll play even till your star can get back out. When the Jaylen Brown sitting minutes have been really ugly this year. It's a lot of just hoping and praying Peyton Pritchard can start being a mid-range assassin while four guys stand around and wait for the kick out. We
Which he
need just
can.
an injection of passing and a little bit of everything that we got from him. Feel free to disagree.
I wish I could. I don't disagree. I do think that Evan Turner role, we did have the limitation of nobody who's won any awards or anything like that. I think of it, the Evan Turner archetype kind of. I remember fondly Gordon Hayward at the end of his Celtics tenure did kind of the same thing when he started to come off the bench and was just like a guy you know is gonna make the right decision with the ball in his hands on a second unit. Like some nights that means having 4 points but 8 assists, and some nights that means taking on and scoring 18. But somebody who you know isn't gonna turn the ball over a ton, isn't gonna go out there and chuck, but is gonna get other guys involved and just make the right decision. I think Evan Turner did do a good job of doing that, and that is someone that we could use. I saw at one point during this game the bench unit points. It was 20 Washington and 2 Boston. So our bench is really, again, suffering from that. I think Anthony Simons just isn't, or hasn't shown that kind of willingness or capability at this point of being that second unit kind of organizer. I think he's been given the freedom to shoot as often as he wants, and he's taking advantage of that. And some nights it works, and some nights it doesn't. Again, tonight, all of his shots that went in were great, but all of them came after it mattered. And so having somebody who's able to not only score a little bit, but facilitate an offense off the bench is something that we could sorely use.
Yeah, I trust Anthony Simons to score the ball. I don't always trust him to bring four guys who aren't offensive players up to the level of a league average offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Cool. Next up, we got fake trades. So I asked you to create one fake trade. We're not even at trade season yet, so this is how out of ideas we are. I'll throw mine out first. And I think who says no to this trade is me, but I find it interesting enough to bring up. So,
Mm-hmm.
right now, we're lacking another big man who can back up Cato. Indiana has 6 centers on their roster and has one of the worst shooting percentages in the league.
Okay.
Who says no to a Baylor Shireman for James Wiseman swap? James Wiseman is 1 year younger than Baylor Shireman. He's 24 to 25. Hasn't really played in a season, but is now fully healthy. They both make exactly $2.6 million and are locked up through the end of next year. So contracts are almost identical.
Walk me through Indiana's center rotation again.
Isaiah Jackson's starting for them. Obi Toppin is coming off the bench. They have Tony Bradley. They have Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who is a recent first rounder. And they have one other center who's actually pretty good that I'm forgetting about. Jay Huff. Jay Huff has been big for them this
Yeah,
season.
that's
So it's really Isaiah Jackson, Jay Huff, Obi Toppin, and then you need Pascal Siakam minutes at the 4. Plus Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Tony Bradley is just like extra centers who are floating around there.
yeah, they do have, it seems like, a surplus of extra centers. I do think, explain to me your rationale for why you say no to this trade, because it is an interesting one that I never would have considered. And Baylor Shireman is not doing a ton to help his value right now, but also James Wiseman has not done a ton to help his value since he was drafted.
Yeah, I think Baylor Shireman can play. Baylor Shireman can get on the court is a big part of it. He has NBA level skills. He's an NBA level shooter. He has some NBA level size for the wing. And having been through this with Aaron Nesmith before and seeing a guy who can really shoot the ball and you see flashes from, like in the Houston game, I don't entirely want to let that guy walk out the door for a guy who I don't know, is he going to play 20 games for us? It's pretty much letting a first round pick walk out the door who we think can still be successful, and in return getting a pretty big question mark back.
Yeah, I think the argument is the question mark is at a position of need and provides some things that we're lacking. I think you can very easily make the argument that we're also lacking shooting right now. But two of our best shooters have been in pretty extended slumps. I mean, extended, it's been 8 games, but um, yeah, I think it is interesting. Um,
I went back and looked at the 2020 mock draft I put out because I remembered I was very high on James Wiseman at the time.
I thought you
Um,
were just high making that mock draft.
oh, I was both. Um, but no, I was super high on James Wiseman. I believe the first line of the mock draft was James Wiseman. He's the fastest guy in the draft. He's the strongest guy in the draft. He moves like a goddamn ballerina. This is basketball. What the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah.
So I was confident. He's another one that's just had pretty consistent back injuries this whole career. And those can really linger, especially in professional sports where you know you're falling down, you're getting hit, you're needing to stay upright. Well, 300-pound men run into you. Um, So I think he really has the skill set we need, and I believe in that skill set, but just wary about the injury history, similar to Ben Simmons.
Yeah, and Ben Simmons, you can make the argument. I mean, he showed more than Wiseman ever did, but also a lot of his issues seemed to stem from
Yeah, Wiseman, I worry less about the
questionable.
attitude with Wiseman.
Yeah.
I think he would be a good
Um,
locker room guy. It's really just the injury flag that I'd be worried about.
I do think the Celtics say no to that trade, but it is really interesting, and I wouldn't mind it.
I was also surprised James Wiseman's younger by a little bit more than a full year.
Yeah, well, he
And
was really young when he came into the league.
yeah, so maybe it just takes him a few years to get the strength and then he's a starting center because he could always have an Andrew Bogut arc to his career where he's a first or second pick, has back injuries immediately when he comes into the league, takes like 7 years to get fully healthy, and then is the starting center with a championship team.
Yeah, I will say Andrew Bogut, not who I think of when I hear the phrase "moves like a ballerina," um,
Well, if you
but
go back and watch those college tapes,
yeah, no,
because he was the
I
number one
wouldn't
pick in the
mind
draft
seeing
for a
James
reason.
Wiseman on this team. Yeah, okay, that's a really good one.
Yeah. All right, what's yours?
Um, I went back and forth. I toyed with the idea of like, how do we get Grant Williams back onto this team? Um, Ultimately, I think the trade that we've talked about in the past and is something that just the Nets still have not won a game, and I've got a hunger for Nick Claxton in a Celtics uniform. And the trade would just be Anthony Simon's contract, and then how many first round picks does it take to get Nick Claxton? Um, it's
The
just
first round picks are the breaking point, I think, in this. Because I don't think we're gonna give up our 2016 or 2026
yeah,
first.
our 2016 pick is now one of the best players in the NBA, so I'm not giving him up.
But our 2026 could be one of the best players in the NBA in a few years, depending on how the rest of the season goes. So I don't think we're giving that one up. And then you start looking forward, and which first rounders are we giving up? Because I don't think we don't want to go out to 2031 and start giving out super far out first round picks that are going to come and bite us in a few years when we're out of this championship window.
Yeah, well, I think you have to kind of make a decision again, not walking the two timelines path, but I think part of it is also looking at Nick Claxton's contract, and that is one of the most appealing things. He's young. I think he could be just a center through this window. He's shown great potential, but also his contract is I forget the word for it. It gets
25
smaller.
million for 3 years.
Yeah, but it gets incrementally smaller
Just
per year.
smaller.
So in the last year of that contract, it's only $20 million. So it's higher value right now. Um, but as time goes on, it wouldn't hurt our cap space as much. We wouldn't have this issue potentially of running into that second apron if we decide to make some more moves and really go all in tax wise. But yeah, I think part of it is just really wanting to figure out a stable center. I think at the big man position there has been a little bit of there's been a lot of fluctuation over the past decade at that position for the Celtics. I mean, Al Horford was always kind of a cornerstone until he wasn't, and then just seeing like going from that Aaron Baines and then Daniel Tice and then Al Horford and then Al Horford's gone and then we're just trying to scramble and Daniel Tice comes back and just feeling like the most stable success we had was when we had a stable guy at that position that the rest of the team could work around, and I think he just fits kind of what we're trying to do. Um, so yeah, I mean the first round picks are great, but again, once Tatum is healthy and this team goes back into kind of win now mode, how much time are we going to be giving to guys that we're using those first round picks on to actually develop them? I think that was something that was really frustrating for part of this past kind of era was like a lot of these first round picks that we were kind of saving up. We wouldn't trade away. We wouldn't package them for any of the stars that became available. And then they turned into Aaron Neesmiths and Romeo Langfords and guys who just ended up fading away. And
Well,
so
I mean, Romeo Langford, we traded for Derek White.
yeah,
And
no, and I
Aaron
don't regret
Neesmith,
that
we
at all.
traded for Malcolm Brogdon, who took us to a title, and then got traded for Drew Holiday, who won us a title. So I think those assets in the end wound up paying off huge for us. And we kind of did trade a lot of our firsts to kind of make that championship team. And right now, we're not the team with a million firsts anymore, where I think we have to be a little bit more careful about, cashing in all our chips for a guy unless we're really sure he can be, the third or fourth guy on our next title team, which I think Nick Claxton could be. If we're saying we know Jason Tatum can be a number one guy, we know Jaylen Brown can be a number two guy, we know Derek White can be the third best guy in a championship team. We just need a center to finish the deal. And we think Nick Claxton can be the guy, then it might be worth throwing, a swap in 29 or 30 and our 31 in there to try to get the deal done. I think the other part of it is we're really relying on letting Anthony Simons walk or trading him for an expiring this year um, in order to get below that first apron and use our mid-level, use the Kristaps
Open up that
um,
trade
tr-
exception.
trade exception, but also try to start extending some of these guys because um, Josh Minot is going to be extension eligible. Who's the Nemise Keita is going to be extension eligible this year. I would love to go to those guys and say, like we did with Peyton Pritchard and
And Derek
Sam
White.
Hauser, and say like, hey, let's give you 10 million a year. Lock it in right now so you don't hit unrestricted free agency. Because we've been able to do that and get guys on really good deals the last few years. I mean, Peyton Pritchard's making $7 million a year, coming off winning Sixth Man of the Year. So I think letting that 25 million walk out the door seems like bad asset management, but if it allows us to keep the diamonds in the rough that we choose this season, there is a benefit to having that flexibility this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I think the extensions, especially, Minot's one of those guys that, I mean, it seems like, again, he's younger than I think people realize, and I think he's got a ton of potential. Keita is really showing some stuff, but at the end of the day, I do feel like there is going to be a cap on this team if we can't find a center that's our guy. Um, and it might not be Claxton. I think part of the other thing is we do still have Brad has done a very effective job at stockpiling second round picks, which have
Yeah.
higher value now than they ever have before. And so I think it's also a little bit of how much do we trust our front office to make good selections in the second round to be able to package some of those second rounders, maybe to get into the late first round and take flyers on guys and just kind of like finding ways to tiptoe that line effectively of we want Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Derek White and our guys and Pritchard and everybody to like go for it without completely draining the closet and realizing that we have a decent track record of finding these guys when we need to. So just trying to toe that line and figuring out again. I don't know if I don't know. I think if it's a who says no to this trade, it's probably Brooklyn, um, unless we give them a lot of kind of enticement in the form of draft picks. But damn, it would be nice.
Yeah, I would love Nick Claxton on this team. I think part of how I'm looking at it this year is I don't think we're going to be able to use all our second rounders because we have three second rounders next year. We're not going to have three roster spots for them. So who is a center in the league that we can get for a contract and then a bunch of second rounders who's not going to be a Nick Claxton, but just throwing out a name. If we put Sam Hauser and Xavier Tillman's contracts together with 3 or 4 seconds, could that get us a Rob Williams, who has a much worse injury history than Xavier Tillman? But we know he fits with this team. He's looked amazing for the first 7 games. I don't know how
I
many
would
Portland
I would
Trailblazers you've
never.
watched.
You know what? That would have been a very good guess who's not walking through the door.
Is
I
Rob
would not
Williams?
mind a Rob Williams revamp at all. I
The
think
problem with
our
Rob Williams is as soon as he walks through the door, a lot of times he has to walk
he
back out
Frank
through the door.
yeah.
He doesn't always stay long. He's not a long-term visitor.
Yeah. I mean, he had really good like injury-free stretches in Boston, and it was really once we decided to move on that his body turned to glass. And hopefully our medical staff would be able to address that particular condition.
Last year, he had a similar year where he started really well in Portland, and he just seemed like, a Nick Claxton level starting center, maybe in like all defense conversations. Then got injured halfway through the year, had to sit out, and now he's just coming back. So the injury thing has plagued him. He's really kind of a 40 game a year player, but he's so good in those games, and I do miss him.
Yes, miss him dearly.
So, all right. That's all I had for today. Thanks for jumping on with me and really
Yeah,
enjoyed the win.
absolute pleasure. Good to pull one out, and looking forward to seeing how we do against Orlando.
Awesome.